Hi, welcome back to our channel. I cannot say welcome back because this is officially the second video on this channel. So welcome back to my plentiful 8 subscribers. Thanks. I know you're on the edge of your seats for a new video. Anyways, I was going to talk about Ramona Wilson, who is an unsolved missing case that was from the 90s and happened in British Columbia, Canada, but I'm going to put that off for a bit because of the information coming out about Vanessa Guillen, and I wanted to cover her case to sort of continue the widespread media coverage because she does deserve justice and she does deserve as much attention as possible. Anyways, I'm going to be talking about Vanessa Guillen, who went missing from Fort Hood. There is little information currently available publicly about Vanessa's early life, so I'll be just recapping what is available. Since Vanessa's case is relatively new and new discoveries are coming out every day, there's conflicting information online. So I apologize if I get any information wrong. It's not my intention to perpetuate false information, but it is difficult to decipher what is correct and what is not, as we are just still getting the full picture of what happened to Vanessa. Vanessa Guillen was born on September 30th, 1999 to her mother Gloria, making her 20 at the time of her disappearance. She was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and was of Mexican descent. One of her family members said that Vanessa enjoyed jogging and sports. Vanessa was very disciplined at school and enjoyed learning, so she graduated in the top 15% at her high school. She had always been vocal about her dreams of joining the military so she could protect her country. After she graduated from high school, Vanessa enlisted in the Army in June 2018. Vanessa was stationed at the U.S. Fort Hood Army Base, which is located in Texas, and she also lived on the base. She would have been promoted to private or specialist on July 1st based on time she already served in the military. Vanessa Guillen went missing over 2 months ago on April 22nd, 2020. At the time of her disappearance, she stood at 5'3", weighed 126 pounds, had dark brown hair and light brown eyes. Her family reported that she had 3 tattoos. On her left arm she had a cross with a flower and then another flower, and then on her upper left shoulder she had a mountain. Vanessa also had a mole on the left side of her chin. She was last seen wearing a black shirt, light purple leggings, and black Nike shoes. It was initially reported that Vanessa was last seen around 1 p.m. on the Fort Hood base at the Regimental Engineer Squadron headquarters. When I looked it up, Fort Hood is a relatively big base covering 860 square kilometers. A few weeks before her disappearance, Vanessa confided in her mom Gloria about some things happening to her on the base. She reportedly told her mom that she did not feel safe anymore at the base because a sergeant had been sexually harassing her. Gloria reported that the alleged harassment involved stalking and verbal threats. It was alleged that this sergeant would follow Vanessa on her jogs on the base, which she did frequently to stay in shape. When her daughter told her this, Gloria tried to push her daughter to give her the sergeant's name so she could report the abuse herself. Vanessa refused, and she reassured her mom that she would handle it herself. It is believed that Vanessa was fearful for her mom's safety if she reported the abuse. Gloria stated that Vanessa was so distraught about what was happening to her on the base that she started having trouble sleeping. Vanessa had never had any trouble sleeping previously. Gloria also said that Vanessa told her that Fort Hood was evil in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. When Vanessa vanished, her car keys, wallet, identification card, and apartment keys were found in the armory where she had been earlier that day. Based on Vanessa leaving these things behind, it was easy to determine that she didn't leave on her own accord. Vanessa would have needed things like her identification card and her apartment keys to navigate around the base and get into places, so she wouldn't have left that behind. Through cell phone records, they found that the last time Vanessa had contact with anyone was at 11:30 a.m. that day. The last text message that Vanessa sent off her phone, the family's attorney Natalie found very disturbing. The last text was a serial number of a gun that she had been assigned to review that day. Natalie suspected that Vanessa might not have been the one to actually send that text message at the time. Her family reported that Vanessa was supposed to have April 22nd off of work, but they called her in last minute. The family began to search for Vanessa right away and tried to make their efforts known to the public. Gloria and Vanessa's sisters seemed to have to really fight to garner more attention about her disappearance. disappearance. The family made it clear that they didn't believe that the Army took them seriously enough when they reported her disappearance the following day on April 23rd. They also stated that they believed the Army investigators weren't being transparent enough, and they believed that the Army was hiding information from them. The family felt like they were being shut out of the investigation, and Gloria desperately wanted the FBI to take over the case to prevent potential cover-up. For the first couple months after Vanessa went missing, Army officials continued to deny allegations about sexual harassment on the base. They cited that they had received no credible information about particular allegations. I saw it reported in a few places that Vanessa was going to report the harassment on April 23rd, the day after that she went missing. Gloria said that she would shut Fort Hood down if her daughter was found dead. On April 27th, it was reported that a joint search between military officials and local authorities began on the base for Vanessa. Shortly after this, Vanessa's family and friends organized a rally in Killeen, Texas to garner more public attention about her disappearance. Dozens of Vanessa's loved ones showed up to the rally. On June 10th, her sister went public and stated that she believed Vanessa was still alive and was being held hostage on the base. Again, her family demanded more transparency and open communication with Army officials about the investigation. A spokesman for the Army Criminal Investigation Division, Chris Gray, released that by early June they had spoken to over 150 people relevant to the investigation. He also stated that the Army was working alongside various authorities including the FBI, Belton Police Department, and the Texas Department of Public Safety. In June, Gray stated that the Army had participated in various ground and air searches for Vanessa on the Fort Hood base as well as other places in central Texas. During these searches, human remains were found a few kilometers away from Fort Hood base. On or around June 20th, it was revealed to the public that the remains belonged to another missing Fort Hood soldier. The remains belonged to Private Gregory Waddell Morales. Gregory was last seen driving his black Kia Rio around the Army base on August 19th, 2019. Though no one saw him the following day, he was last in contact with someone on August 20th. He was positively identified through dental records, and authorities believe that foul play was the cause of his death. He was due to be discharged from the military a few days after he disappeared. An autopsy was obviously performed on his remains, but I couldn't find any public release about his cause of death. Army representatives have stated that they don't believe the two cases are connected, but personally, I believe that when you're searching for one missing soldier and you find another missing soldier that went missing around 10 months previously, there's something wrong with the base. Back to Vanessa Guillen's case. Vanessa's sister said she met with Fort Hood officials on May 23rd to discuss the case. When she was advocating for her sister, a sergeant present laughed in her face when she was talking about the case. This sergeant was later identified to be the main suspect in the case. After receiving a tip, K-9 and diving teams joined the military and local authorities in a search near Leon River. They didn't find anything during this search, but it was later released that this was their 5th time searching that area. The Army finally admitted that they believed foul play was involved in Vanessa's case 2 months later on June 23rd. On June 30th, the search for Vanessa was called off when human remains were found in a shallow grave near Leon River. The remains were found in an area along Leon River in Little River Academy, which is a small town not too far from the base. On July 1st, her family and the family's attorney revealed in a press conference that they were positive that the remains were Vanessa. It was reported that the family was told that Vanessa had been bludgeoned to death and that concrete was poured over her body. Later that night, after her remains were found, Sergeant Aaron Robinson fled from his post at Fort Hood. At the time, he was the main suspect in Vanessa's murder, but he was not in CID custody yet. Authorities located him walking down a street in Killeen. They tried to make contact and speak to him, but when they started to approach him, it is reported that Aaron unsheathed a weapon and shot himself and was dead on the scene. Aaron Robinson was 20 years old at the time and was a combat engineer specialist at Fort Hood. He was publicly identified by authorities on July 2nd, but the family had already went public the day before and released his name. The family's lawyer, Natalie, said that Robinson was the alleged sergeant that was harassing Vanessa on the base. He was also the superior Vanessa was reportedly last seen with on the day of her disappearance. In a press conference, Natalie further detailed the sexual harassment that Vanessa Vanessa was experiencing on the base. She said there was 2 instances. The first instance was when a man was making vulgar comments to her in Spanish, and then the other instance is when a sergeant, presumably it was Aaron Robinson, walked in on her when she was showering. It was believed that the sergeant that walked in on her while she was showering was also the man that was following her on her jogs. It is believed that Vanessa feared retaliation if she reported the abuse, which seems to be what happened to her. Army officials continue to deny these allegations, citing no proof. But to me, it's obvious that there would be no record of the harassment if Vanessa did in fact fear retaliation. She was too scared to come forward to her superiors, so obviously there's no documentation, and perhaps she didn't speak to anyone else on the base because she didn't feel comfortable. Cicely Aguilar, who was reportedly Aaron's girlfriend at the time, was arrested in connection with Vanessa's death. There are conflicting reports about the relationship between Aaron and Cicely. Some say that she's the estranged wife of Aaron. Others say that she's the estranged wife of a separate Fort Hood soldier. I think it's the latter because that seems more consistent in reports. Anyways, either which way it is, officials suspect that she helped Aaron bury and hide Vanessa Guillen's body. So at this time, as more information comes out, this may change, but the major theory is that Aaron murdered Vanessa, and I'm going to describe more in depth about what they believe happened to her on April 22nd. This theory or belief was put forward by the family's attorney and Tim Miller, who is the founder of Search, I believe it's called, and he was assisting the family in the search at the time in the investigation because they believe the army officials weren't doing enough, so they brought him on. So sources allegedly told Natalie, the family attorney, that when Vanessa Guillen arrived at the base that day in the armory, Aaron Robinson was already present. So there are 2 separate beliefs about what may have been the motive behind the murder, and I'm going to list them now, obviously. So the first belief is that Vanessa spotted photos of Cicely on Aaron's phone, and then she confronted him about Aaron being involved with Cicely and having an affair. So in this proposition, I assume that Cicely is the estranged wife of a different Fort Hood soldier, because that would make sense, because the affair wouldn't make sense if she was his wife. So I hope you get what I'm saying. It's a little convoluted, I apologize. And then the other belief for the motive behind the murder is that Robinson found out that Vanessa was going to report him the following day about the sexual harassment allegations, so he became enraged. And in both of these motives, it is believed that a fight ensued, an argument ensued between the two, and then Aaron got more and more angry, and there was a hammer, I guess, in the armory, and he bludgeoned Vanessa to death by hitting her repeatedly in the head with the hammer. It is then reported by Tim Miller that he hid her body in a pelican case, which is about 3 feet. I think it's used on army bases and stuff to hold army equipment. I'm not sure. I have very limited military knowledge, but this is my understanding of after doing a Google search on what it is. So according to CNN, army officials stated that basically they believe that Aaron could not possibly be the sergeant that was sexually harassing Vanessa because they were co-workers, but they weren't in the same line of command. So that means that Aaron wasn't her sergeant because he wasn't a superior to her. It is also reported that they worked in separate buildings on the base, but that Aaron worked in the building adjacent from the armory where Vanessa worked at. This makes a little sense to me as to why Aaron would then be in the same armory as Vanessa that day if they didn't work in the same building, but maybe it's just like that's where he was told to go that day or something. I don't know. I do not understand. Tim Miller said there were sightings of a man carrying a 3-foot pelican case out of the armory and struggling to put it in his car. So after Aaron puts Vanessa's body into his car, it is reported that he drove her to the area she was found along Leon River and dumped her body in the box there. He then went to pick up Cicely after she got off work. She worked at a gas station, and and then he admitted what he had done to Vanessa. He admitted that he had bludgeoned another Fort Hood soldier to death after they had gotten in an argument. So then the pair, Cicely and Aaron, drove out to the Leon River where Aaron had dumped her body. In a criminal complaint, Cicely says that this is when Aaron opened the box and showed her Vanessa's body. The next information is a little graphic, so maybe skip forward 30 seconds to a minute to avoid the description of how they disposed of her body. So it's then reported that Cicely and Aaron used a machete-like knife to dismember Vanessa to make it harder to identify her body. It is then alleged that they tried to burn her body to hide the evidence. When that didn't work, they dug multiple shallow graves and put her remains in the graves. Tim Miller says that this is reinforced that a pelican case that was partially burnt was found near the remains on Leon River. It is then alleged that they poured freshly mixed concrete on top of her remains and then also put rocks over her. Natalie said she received this information that she was relaying to the public from a meeting she had with authorities on Wednesday night. So to conclude this video, I believe that regardless of the exact relationship between Aaron and Vanessa and what was happening, I believe that no matter what, she was failed by a toxic environment at Fort Hood and a abusive and psychotic man. In a press conference, Natalie, the family's attorney, stated how she believed that the Army needed to reframe how they dealt with sexual assault and misconduct allegations. She said that they currently handle allegations and reports internally, which means that if you, a soldier, are harassed sexually or otherwise by a fellow coworker or superior, that you have to go to someone within the base and report the abuse. I think when you have internal investigations and internal processes like this, it lends its hand to more cover-ups happening. I think Vanessa would have greatly benefited if she felt safe enough and if she was able to go to an authority that was independent of the military, that had no bias, that didn't know anyone at Fort Hood, that could handle her allegations. I think this would prevent retaliation and a possible bias influencing how the investigation is carried out. Maybe Vanessa would still be alive if she was able to speak and felt safe enough to speak about her experiences at Fort Hood. It is obvious there is some sort of abuse that was happening to her on the base. Her safety and her comfort should have been prioritized. It should be mentioned that to this day, the Army continues to deny allegations that Vanessa was ever sexually harassed on the base. They use these 300 interviews or whatever that they've had with people on the base to sort of prove that it didn't happen. They say that they can't find any credible evidence, which is obviously, if she feared retaliation, she's not going to be talking about it to people on the base. So how could they possibly know that these allegations weren't true? Cicely was arrested for her involvement in the burial and disposal of Vanessa's body by Texas Rangers. She is currently being held at Bell County Jail, and I couldn't find any information about her bond. I mentioned before that Vanessa Guillen stated that she would shut Fort Hood down if she found her daughter dead, and they found her daughter dead. I believe her family and Vanessa deserves justice for what happened to her at Fort Hood and how officials did not protect Vanessa and perpetuated a toxic environment. Vanessa had a beautiful and bright future, and it was taken away by Aaron Robinson and the environment at Fort Hood. I'm going to link Vanessa's family's website below, and you can donate to the family if you feel so inclined, and there's other resources and information about what you can do to help, either monetarily or sign a petition to hold people accountable, hold officials accountable for Vanessa. That's all the information I have about Vanessa Guillen's case currently. I will post any updates that I receive in the comments. I'll pin a comment. If I have stated anything that is false, please correct me below. As I said before, it's a new developing case, so it is hard to get things 100% right because the story is constantly changing and constantly developing. Again, thank you for watching. I'll be back soon with a new video. Please like and subscribe if you want.
Since she was 10 years old, she dreamed of entering the military. She dreamed of being that soldier. She wanted greater opportunities. She wanted to help my parents as well. She signed that contract with the army to protect and serve the country. Yet look how they treated her. Like if it was she was nothing. She's a human being as well. She deserves respect. And look, Farah didn't give it to her. I